to start with the first one and I'll try to match it to the infographic.
So it's so interesting because I feel like if I had to put myself as a client, I would be this one. Um, but the unrealistic client is the first one. So basically, this is like the dreamer client. Like they just had an idea for a candle company, and then they come to you and they're like, "Oh, but this is gonna be the next Yankee Candle," and then they're like, "I need." Let's say we're talking about graphic design. Oh my gosh, and I need this label and then this over here with the engraving, and then it's gonna be crazy, like something easy to mass produce. And meanwhile, you're like, oh, okay, great. They start with that, so you think that it's gonna be like this crazy thing, and you're like, oh, so what's the name of your company? They're just like, oh, I'm not really sure yet. You're like,
I don't know that any of these infographics match that, but I know exactly what you're talking about. But it's almost like this one, like the Mr. I'm not really sure what I want. But it's also like they have a big idea and they're like committed to it, even though they don't have like the foundation yet. I feel like that's more relative to
right,
what you're
committed
saying.
without a foundation. Really? They don't have that at the bottom? Oh, what's a weekend?
I know.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting.
Oh, maybe this is more for. Oh, no, I think that's Mr. I'm not really sure what I want.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like, well, I guess, yeah, the other one they call it unrealistic. Because people just. Well, the first assumption is that people understand your industry. Like a client would understand your industry, which I think is a mistake that a lot of like the freelancer or the business owner makes, that this person knows exactly what they want and what they need, and maybe they do know what they want, but you need to guide them to what they want in
Right.
your world. But
Yeah.
and especially being like, I don't know, when in sales and hotels, it's like, especially with weddings, you think someone knows what they want in a wedding because they're like been dreaming of their wedding. They might even have a scrapbook at home. But they show up and you're like, "Oh, you don't even know how many people you want at your wedding." That's like the
Yeah.
most basic question.
Right.
So,
I feel
anyway,
like that's happened to you
it's
in
like
wedding
it's
planning.
ridiculous. Or like, when do you want to get married? Oh, I mean, anytime, but it's not
Yeah.
anytime. It's you don't want to get married in the summer. You don't want to get married in the middle of winter. There is a time. You don't want to get married 5 years from now. Like,
Yeah.
so,
I feel like it just takes a lot of like leadership when it comes to those types of clients, because you kind of have to like pull out what's useful and like what you can use in order to complete like the task or the project.
right.
Because they're like, I'm not fully sure what I want, or it's this big idea. Like, so you got to see like what's realistic, what makes sense, what's the timeline, and then just like lead them. Which
Right.
hopefully they're like able to be led. I feel like it would be difficult if you had a client like that had all these like unrealistic expectations and big ideas and stuff,
Hmm.
but they also were super stubborn and like non-cooperative and just like stuck.
Right. I think it's important to, I mean, even if you don't label it into one of these 15 or one of the 8 of the other one, it's just to recognize it from the beginning and already know your game
Right.
plan. Because one of the important things is, like, for example, that one, for the unrealistic one, is you have to start with some kind of map.
Hmm.
And, like, timeline is, I think, important too, but map meaning like this happens, then this happens, then this happens.
Yeah.
Because then you won't be on the same page. But sometimes people don't notice that and they just start talking to the client. They're so excited that they're working together and da da da. And then halfway through the project, you're like, this is like not possible. Like your
Yeah.
dream is too big, or I'm not responsible for your dream. I think Sasha knows about ending
I
up
think
starting with
with
a logo or something and then ending up as a business partner.
yeah. I think a lot of clients fall into that trap where they also assign you to do one thing and then they're like, oh, but also this, and this, and this, which I'm sure they'll talk about elsewhere in the article. But I think like the pro and con of this type of client where they have like this unrealistic expectation or this big idea is that they are passionate. So they're definitely invested and like more entrepreneurial probably than others. But the con is that there's no foundation or structure. So for you to be hired in to help them with something that you have an expertise on, you probably have to also like help them understand the foundation before you can even do the job because it's kind of essential.
Well, yeah, and I think even in like let's say graphic design, that's something they can even relate to more in a way because they can imagine their shop or store or logo even if it's like vague. Like they know the style of and the mood of what they want. But let's say they went to like I don't know, a manufacturer and they don't know anything about that.
Right.
Like how are like you're gonna be oh well how many I don't even know how many machines are you looking to take up or whatever and I don't know.
Yeah.